this more next year. You've run a couple of interviews with Carl Czar recently, and it's now time to introduce Carl to the programme, but Mike, you've got a few words to say first.
Well, over the last few weeks, Mark Anderson has been reporting Donald Trump's comments about the Panama Canal. So let's just bring this on screen and just so that everybody knows where Panama is. Of course, he's been talking about or making the point that Panama, he said, he did not sell to China. He had sold the Panama Canal to Panama, not to China. And so he was pretty upset with the fact, at least that was his rhetoric, that China had so much influence in the area. So apparently then, out of nowhere, out of the blue, at the beginning of March, CK Hutchison Holdings, which is based in Hong Kong, announced that it had agreed to sell control of a unit operating ports associated with the Panama Canal to a consortium, including BlackRock, Global Infrastructure Partners, and Terminal Investment Limited. So let me say hello to Carl and welcome you to the program. What's the detail on this, Carl, and how has China responded to it?
Mike, it's good to see you. And right now, this is a big deal. CK Hutchison is one of the biggest multinational company based in Hong Kong. And since 1997, it has controlled both ports at both ends of Panama Canal. This has been a talking point by many in the United States national security circles as China's influence in Panama. Now, Chinese government is actually very upset at this surprising deal that was announced. The pro-Beijing newspaper Da Gongbao, based in Hong Kong, has lashed out at this deal and calling Li Ka-shing, the Hong Kong billionaire who owns CK Hutchison, has been spinelessly groveling to the Trump administration. But in a way, this also shows that China, in fact, do not control CK Hutchison as a company, because if they do, they could have just told them no deal or the deal is off. The current deal is structured. CK Hutchison is going to sell 43 ports in 23 countries, including 2 ports in Panama, but also their ports on Suez Canal. Very strategic, vital geopolitical strangleholds to a BlackRock group led consortium, and the deal is brokered by Goldman Sachs. So this is a great PR victory for the Trump administration, because Trump claimed that he has reclaimed Panama Canal from China, and in doing so, he's handing a very sweetheart deal to his buddies in the Wall Street, to the people in the Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. Now, China is upset because this would set a bad precedence for Chinese companies bending under pressure from U.S. government decree, especially coming up in April. There's a forced sale of TikTok. U.S. Congress passed a law that TikTok must sell to American company by April or cease to operate on American soil. So if with the CK Hutchison deal goes through, this set a very bad example for other Chinese companies to follow, especially with TikTok forced sale date that's coming up. This is why, Chinese government is voicing its displeasure at CK Hutchison, probably for not informing them of the deal beforehand, but also structure the deal in such a way it does not allow enough time for a third party to come in with a bid. So Chinese government actually don't have a time to organize a counter bid to this right now. And this is why they're understandably upset. But for Trump, this demonstrate another one of his great victory, to reclaim American greatness.
The South China Morning Post here is saying that China has now sent a delegation to Panama after the port deal, and in the headline here it's saying Belt and Road exit. And I suppose my next question is, what is the likely outcome of this for the Belt and Road initiative?
That's a great question. Well, another Trump claim victory is that it forced Panama government to withdraw from the Belt and Road Initiative with China. Again, this is a PR victory because Panama, since its last president, has canceled all the Belt and Road Initiative project with China. Most importantly, a $4 billion high-speed rail project. So currently, there's actually no Belt and Road Initiative project in Panama. So it's very easy for Panamanian government to claim that they are withdrawing from BRI when in fact there's nothing going on, and it's an easy PR victory for the Trump administration also, because they can claim another victory over China, another victory of America reclaiming the Panama Canal, and for the Panamanian government to curry favor with the Trump administration, saying, "Okay, we're doing as we have been told. We are towing your line."
So some of the coverage that I saw in Chinese language media and the translation services do a very good job of translating it. The language that was being used was really aggressive. I mean, betrayal, treason, this kind of thing. Are there going to be any repercussions for Hutchison and its chief executive?
Well, this is interesting part because Hutchison sold all its overseas ports, but they're retaining all the ports that they operate in China and Hong Kong. So they're actually, what they're doing is, from purely business standpoint, they're reducing their geopolitical risk. They didn't want to get caught in between a geopolitical competition between China and United States, and all its overseas ports, both in Suez Canal and the Panama Canal, could be subject to possible U.S. sanctions. And China has chose to not publicly attack C.K. Hutchison through its official state media. I'm talking about Xinhua, I'm talking about People's Daily or CCTV. Instead, it used a kind of the proxy media. It's a pro-Beijing newspaper in Hong Kong by voicing its concerns, and then having China's top liaison office in Hong Kong reposting this article, while the Chinese government itself had refrained from publicly naming the owner of CK Hutchison, which is the Hong Kong billionaire Li Ka-shing. And Li Ka-shing's youngest son actually is recently in Beijing attending a business forum attended by many global leaders, including American Tim Cook, who get to meet with Xi Jinping. So I'm sure there's some kind of backroom deal that's being worked out. And so far, a lot of the blame the Beijing official media had placed on the Trump administration for unilaterally pressuring private business to conform to unreasonable American demands.
Carl, obviously I've just given a report on shipping, or at least the effect that this ridiculous strategy that the UK government's proposing. But of course, not just the UK, the whole of Europe is very much dependent upon freight coming into it from other parts of the world. The Panama Canal will be therefore very strategically important. But Western governments and indeed their media are predisposed to be in opposition to both Donald Trump and China. What's your sense of the response from Europe, the governments of Europe, the European Union, and the media?
I mean, right now, with the new Trump administration, the European foreign policy is in shambles. It's a lot of the European leaders are kind of running around like headless chickens. They're talking about continuing the proxy war in Ukraine without United States. They're talking about possibly forming a security pact without U.S. I mean, this is very ridiculous talk. And the fact that they are now being placed under tariffs by the Trump administration, on one hand, on other hand, they want to continue the same policy they follow under the Biden administration, which is to be aggressive toward China in terms of trade. It just does not make sense. I mean, Europe is not really piloting a third way here. There's a real opportunity for Europe to have its own independent foreign policy that serves European interests. Yet for some odd reasons, the European leaders decide not to do that, but follow the same failed neoliberal foreign policy that was under the Biden administration, even though the tune has changed in Washington. This is something maybe you can help me to understand. Why is the European leader persist in such self-defeating ways?
because they're off their heads, Carl. But we'll talk about that in
We'll
extra.
try to get to the bottom of that extra if we perhaps extend it somewhat. Carl, thanks very much indeed. And